You believe that every man, woman, and child in America has the right to affordable health care. Join us. Bernie Sanders and I will work together to make college tuition free for the middle class and debt free for all.
Free, it's all free. Hillary Clinton out on the trail this weekend after touting her big government plans at the convention. But her husband had a very different message for America when he was in the White House. Take a listen.
We have worked to give the American people a smaller, less bureaucratic government in Washington. And we have to give the American people one that lives within its means. The era of big government is over.
Wow, quite a contrast. So which Clinton message is right for America today? The 1996 Bill Clinton or the 2016 Hillary Clinton? Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus to find out with Mr. Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Elizabeth McDonald, Mike Ozanian, John Tamny, and Bruce Japsen. Steve, which one is right for America?
Obviously, the bill of 1996, and unfortunately, he peaked early. What Hillary Clinton does not realize, she is a socialist light. What she does not realize, the more burdens you put on the economy, the less resources are created, and everyone suffers for it. Bill learned the lesson, forgot it. She never knew it in the first place.
Well, Bruce, she is certainly for bigger government. We look at all of her proposals, $500 billion here, $300 billion there. It adds up to $1.5 trillion in new spending over 10 years.
Well, here's the deal. Like her husband, she would pay for her proposals, and I think they would be incremental.
Well,
I don't think it would be all free at once.
She wouldn't pay for her proposals. We would pay for her proposals with higher taxes.
The billionaires would be.
Well, we all would. Go ahead.
The folks that Trump alleges are his peers would pay for the billionaires.
That's
but we don't know if they're peers. We don't know if they're peers because he doesn't release his tax returns. But she would pay for this incrementally, and it would be a mix of tax reforms and new revenue that would pay for it. And that's what Bill Clinton learned, to reduce the deficit. He paid for everything that he did, and that's what she would do.
All right. And again, he lowered the capital gains tax. That brought in a lot of revenue as well because we had more economic activity. Rich, let's look at Clinton's surplus. This was back in the 1990s. Now, we call it Clinton surplus. We've got to remember he was working with a Republican Congress, but together they provided us with one of the few surpluses in our history.
Well, that's correct, but we should remind ourselves that Bill Clinton, elected in 1992, was more progressive. His wife tried to nationalize health care in 1993, and that led to a huge backlash, and the Republicans pulling off a big upset and winning the House of Representatives in a 50-plus swing vote in 1994. So from there on, Bill Clinton had to work with Newt Gingrich in the Republican House. They kept federal spending at below 20% of GDP. And the economy boomed.
Yeah. John, one thing she said last night, it kind of relates to this, that really stuck in me, which was the idea that she said America is great because it's good, which is wrong. America is great because it's free. And it's that freedom that's in jeopardy right now. Do you think she'll ever get that? Anybody can say they're good, but very few countries can say they're free.
Yeah, she talked a lot about we and what we're going to do. What makes America great is a fierce individualism that allows everyone to live as they want, with the federal government protecting their rights to live as they want to. And so she missed that point. And the other thing is, we've got to remember, government spending is the ultimate tax on the American people because it amounts to politicians removing precious resources from the economy and consuming them. Bill Clinton was most definitely right. Thank goodness he had a Congress that worked with him to bring spending down.
But Mike, John is all wrong because it's all free stuff. It's all free. We heard her say it at the beginning. By the way, she put out a tweet about a month ago about Wi-Fi. She says 2 words: free Wi-Fi. Well, the Americans for Tax Reform figured out that free Wi-Fi was going to cost us all $275 billion, and that's just one free program.
Right, and all those people that talk about how her husband Bill gave us that budget surplus also fail to mention how he did that by taking the Social Security surplus and throwing it over on the other side of the ledger. In terms of Hillary Clinton, I think she's going to be really hurt this year by the Summer Olympics, David, in Brazil. You talk about progressive policies that she espouses, Those are in full force in Brazil, and they're going to see the tremendous poverty down there, the tremendous health care, waste that flows from homes right onto the street. There's your progressivism.
Well, and we've already seen it with Venezuela. Very much the same thing happened there. Okay, well, Emac, all these free programs, you add them up, and eventually you're talking about some real money. The whole amount of spending under President Clinton was $12.7 trillion. Under President Bush, $19 trillion, which is still a lot. But look at this. Under President Obama, 28, and she wants to build on that.
Yeah, you know, shovel-ready government spending doesn't create middle-class jobs. Look at what we're dealing with now. The worst economic growth since FDR was in office. Household, home ownership rates at 1965 levels. Household income at 1996 levels. It really doesn't work. So you're taking money out of pockets and redistributing it through this gigantic, inefficient pump known as the U.S. government. I'll tell you something. Margaret Thatcher said something really interesting about socialism. It's about the animating vision of optimism she was talking about. She said socialism is about the spirit of envy. Envy destroys things. It doesn't build things.
Yeah, and Steve, it all comes back to these basic emotions, doesn't it?
Yes, and it's all about getting more and more people dependent on the government. And even though that hurts the economy, they don't care. They have the power. That's what this is all about. Forget the rhetoric. It's more government power, and we pay the price for it. So,
Rich, which will people go for? The envy that Emac was talking about, or the freedom that John Tamny and Michael Zanian are talking about?
Oh, I think there's a deep reservoir of people who want to move toward freedom. The Republican candidate needs to do a better job of articulating that and staying focused. But look, you know, the key thing here is not the size of the deficit, it's the ratio of GDP to government spending. And if you keep it below 20%, the economy prospers. It did under Reagan and it did under Bill Clinton.
But that's a tricky number because government spending is actually added to GDP. So, in other words, the economy grows and the government spends more because the government puts out that GDP number that includes government spending.
Let's pull out of the weeds for a second. Bruce, I want to get back to this basic thing about what people are going to vote for in their gut. You would have to admit, would you not, that if you grow government more, you do get less individual freedom. The bigger government is, the more it cuts into our individual freedom, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know. When I would say, you asked me about the election, I would say that, she is proven that she can work with people across the aisle. The guy on the other side says he knows it all. And when you talk to economists
but Bruce,
about
work with me on this for a second. I asked a specific question. When you grow government, don't you lose a bit of individual freedom? Isn't that the cost, one of the costs you pay for bigger government?
Well, it could be. It depends on how it grows. I mean, she could be like her husband, and she could add programs in certain other areas and cut them elsewhere. I mean, she's going to work with the other side, and I don't think that the other guy has proven that he can do it, but he doesn't want to do it.
But John Tamny, I'm wondering here in this election, what are people more concerned about? Losing more of their freedom or getting more things through bigger government?
Well, I'll answer your question. Bigger government is by definition a decrease in freedom. Hillary Clinton is promising things to the electorate, but she cannot give them. She can only give, or Congress can only give, insofar as they take from others.
Right.
So when government grows, we of course lose our freedom.
Okay.
I hope the electorate doesn't want this.
And my quick last word, the more the government takes, the less freedom we have, no?
Absolutely, and people have just lived through that terrible thing over the last 7 years, which is why, at this point in time, Trump is actually tied with Hillary Clinton in the polls.
Fascinating stuff. Well, forget the old Main Street.